On today's show, we will dive into multiple topics, including Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. You got the new UFC antitrust lawsuit that was just filed. You can expect this to continue happening year over year. At this point, it seems like. So we'll break that down. Also, is Alex Pereira done with MMA? That's the word on the street. Is Alex Pereira never going to fight again? You're not going to want to miss this show because we're getting into all these topics and more next.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is the TCMMA Podcast with your host, Chris Cross.
Whoa!
Dana White privilege.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go, baby!
Dana White privilege. Privilege. Privilege.
What up? It's your boy Chris Cross checking in. This is the TC MMA podcast, and a couple of things to get into today, right? After getting past UFC Vegas 107 this past weekend, we're rolling into UFC 316 this weekend. We first got to get to all the topics on today's podcast, and there's a few stories. Let's begin first with this one. Two former UFC fighters filed new antitrust lawsuit against the promotion, against the UFC. And this one isn't so much about monetary damages as it is the future of the UFC, right? Because it's not, this one's more about former UFC fighters saying, hey, UFC more or less has a monopoly over contracts, which hurts us from signing with other promotions. It even hurts fighters that aren't tied to a promotion, right? Because it makes it hard to get into UFC. Then you're forced to go to a different promotion. And this lawsuit is going to be all over the place. And it's going to really, the ultimate goal, I believe, when I'm looking at this new antitrust lawsuit, is that they're going to try to change the way the UFC does its contracts. So that's really where the story lies, right? So one of the things that sticks out for me is when you sign with the UFC, let's just say, make up something. You sign a 6-fight deal. The number per fight doesn't matter, right? But you sign a 6-fight deal. You don't know if that 6-fight deal is going to happen in 2 years, 6 years, or it's indefinite, right? So let's just say you get a 6-fight deal. The UFC isn't obligated per the contract to give you or offer you 3 fights a year. Now, a lot of times the fighters are turning down fights. Maybe they offer you a fight against someone you don't want to fight that's below you, right? So if the UFC is trying to force you into a corner, into a certain fight that they want, and you're not going for it, then they just offer you whatever fight they want, and you say no. And they do that 3 times a year, and then you don't see some of these guys fighting for a while. So there's all types of things going on behind the scenes. But I say this, okay, and this has nothing to do with the law. It's just looking at the sport. And I look at it and I say, well, let's not forget what happened to boxing, right? Boxing started out as this great sport, and then it quickly splintered into 5 or 6 different promotions, if you will. WBA, WBC, WBO, WB this, that, and the other thing. And the problem that we saw is you don't know who necessarily the champion of any division is, because there might be 5 different champions on the planet. There might be some champions with 2 or 3 belts. So you got 2 or 3 champions in this certain division in boxing. And you can never get the guys to fight. So what's going on now with boxing is they're trying to reconsolidate the thing so we can get the best fighters in the world fighting. Because if not, people lose interest. You know, if the UFC splinters into PFL, Bellator's, let's just say, I know Bellator is kind of faded, but say the UFC splinters into PFL being at the same level, Bellator being at the same level, two or three other promotions being at the same level, and you have 5 different heavyweight champions. Well, who's the real champ? The UFC is not allowing its guys to fight against other promotions. It's not going to happen. So it will be interesting to see how this develops. I think the UFC is at a height right now, as long as Dana White's there, where the fighters are going to want to be in the UFC, regardless what the contracts are. If the contracts change, it could open the sport up to different promotions, but I don't think that will happen initially. That would happen when you get a better promoter in a different promotion. And the UFC parts ways with Dana White at some point, not because they want to, but because, for whatever reason in the future. It could be 20 years from now, could be tomorrow. We don't know. But you get a better promoter in a different promotion than you do in the UFC, and then things start to go sideways. And yeah, it's, you want to provide equal competition, but then the sport gets diminished and ruined at the same time. So what is the overall goal of the lawsuit? I just don't agree with the fighters doing this, and it's usually former fighters, right? That made their money or are unhappy about the money they made, and they're gone. They don't really care about future fighters. It makes it sound like they do, but they really don't. Yeah, you want to provide equal opportunity for different promotions, but then that could weaken the overall sport, and then nobody's making money. So what's the overall goal here? That's the problem with that. Now, as we move forward, Jon Jones mocks Tom Aspinall, as well as that petition, right, that has been circulating. Jon Jones is more or less saying, hey, let's take this thing up to 200 from 100,000 signatures. Jon Jones does not care. Ladies and gentlemen, Jon Jones does not care. He's not fighting before he wants to. There's a game plan here. The game plan usually works because he pretty much wins every time. And Tom Aspinall is the ultimate opponent for Jon Jones. He's a real, true heavyweight that could be a problem for Jon Jones. So Jon Jones is going to play his game to perfection, and the UFC is not stripping him of his title. So I laughed at, like, I'm going to take the time to sign a petition. This is the fight game. Like, this isn't like, I mean, this is for fun. You want to remove someone from office. I don't know. I'm just making something up, but you want to remove someone from office or a high profile position. You sign a petition, fine. Maybe there's some meeting there, so you take the time to sign it, but sign a petition to remove Jon Jones from the heavyweight title. The UFC is just going to laugh at it, probably rip it up. So Jon Jones does not care. He's going to fight when he wants to and when he's comfortable, and that's the bottom line. And there's a lot of inner workings that we don't even know about. It's hard to say what's going on. I mean, it's hard to say what's going on behind the scenes. Does Jon Jones want more money? Does he just not want to fight? But every 18 months to 2 years? Is he playing mind games with Tom Aspinall? We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And we don't know how much the UFC knows about Jon Jones, is why there's a wait here. We just don't know. We don't know anything. I mean, everything is speculation. And you can get mad at me for saying that, but that's all it is. Everybody is just speculating. That's what's fun about the fight game as well, is it's all speculation until it isn't. And we're all just trying to figure out what the heck is going on, because one of the best fights in the world right now, we can't get set up. But if you understand what Jon Jones does and what he's done in the past, this will make a whole lot of sense to you. The UFC fans are saying thank God today, right? They're rejoicing as UFC Noche has been changed from Guadalajara to San Antonio. And not so much are people thanking God, UFC fans thanking God for that, but it's more or less they don't want to see Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez, a rematch. So who knows how this is going to play out. And this goes down at UFC 320, so we got plenty of time. We're talking a little bit later in the year, late summer, early fall, but People want to know what's going on. Who's fighting in the main event? And they're saying hopefully it's not Volkanovski versus Yair. We don't want to see that fight again. I'm in agreement with that. Let's move on. But there's a lot of rejoicing today just because the event was moved and people are believing that that fight is not going to take place. That's what people are hoping for today. They don't want to see Volk versus Yair, the rematch. I'm trying to see if this thing is definitely done for. Yeah, so we don't have much on it yet, but we'll see how this thing plays out. But what we do know is that it's moved from Guadalajara to San Antonio. Who's fighting in the main event? We don't yet know. But usually that means there's going to be some Mexicans on the card, right? Will there be a Mexican in the main event? We'll see. And that's why Yair was being pushed in there. But right now, there's no word on how this thing is going to play out. Now, another story, UFC champion drops claim. Magomed Ankalaev is dropping the claim that Alex Pereira's future is uncertain. In fact, he said on X, Alex is done. He never coming back. Let's move on. June, July, August. I said yes. So is this true? Is Alex Pereira done with MMA? I'm going to say absolutely not. But right now, he might just need a break. I mean, the guy went on a tear, fighting multiple times a year. Last year, especially, he went on a tear. What was it like? UFC 300, 303, 306, something like that. Whenever there was an opening and the UFC couldn't find anybody, because of guys like Jon Jones only fighting once every 18 months, they got to fill these pay-per-views with champions. Alex Pereira was there every year. I'll fight, I'll fight, I'll fight. You know, and all he wanted from it was, hey, let me fight Jon Jones. But I don't think the UFC ultimately wanted him to be the first 3-belt champion. I don't know why. Because Alex Pereira did everything he was asked to do. And I think he's ready to move up to heavyweight. So he'll probably come back and beat Ankalaev, in my opinion. But, you know, right now he just needs a break. I think that's what's going on with Pereira. You just need a break sometimes. And he's getting older, so who knows about the future. I just don't believe that his time is done just yet. That's where I'm at with that. So these are some of the topics circulating now. In tomorrow's podcast, in tomorrow's show, we're going to dive deep into UFC 316 because it's time. It's just around the corner this Saturday night. It's going to be a big event. Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley, the rematch, in which everybody's saying, including myself, that Sean O'Malley is going to be a different fighter. Does that mean he's going to win? We'll find out tomorrow what my belief is on that. But the bottom line is this guy has put all his focus, and think about everything that Sean O'Malley has, the celebrity status, the podcast, all the social media stuff. I mean, he's put 90% of that on hold to focus on this fight. And we're going to break that down tomorrow and dive right into that fight and let you know who's going to win because both guys are on the dude list and Merab is ranked higher, which means that Merab should be winning this fight by way of prediction. But hold on, not so fast. Sean O'Malley's going for it, man. He's trying to win this thing. So we're going to dive deeper into that tomorrow. And then, of course, you got Juliana Pena and Kayla Harrison going at it. Co-main event there. That's going to be a big one. So stay tuned for that on tomorrow's podcast. For now, this is your boy Chris Cross. I hope you have a great day and God bless. As always, peace.